but maybe we can start talking a little bit about your band Maelstrom.
Sure.
Yeah. So how big had it been in the 90s as you started Maelstrom? So I have recognized you have a lot of Facebook followers.
Yes. Maelstrom started out in 1988.
Yeah.
And early on, we started to develop a good local following. We played at a place that anybody who grew up in the Nassau County, Long Island metal scene would play. Basically, there was a place called February's, and it was a small club, but it became very, very well known. It was sort of like Long Island's version of CBGB's. So all the bands that, a lot of bands on Long Island got their start at this one club called February's. So we started to play there, had about 3 gigs, did well, good local following, a lot of the local high school kids that, because we were all still in high school when we started. So, the friends would show up and stuff. And we had, first show, a couple hundred people, second show about 100, third show about 200. Yeah. So, it was good.
Good.
We actually, the old bass player just found an audio cassette of our second show ever.
Okay.
So I just heard it. So I'll probably put this up online soon. It'll be a lot of fun cutting some video to it, like old pictures and stuff. So that'll be a lot of fun. It'll be the first time that we ever played and the first recording ever of the song Arise. So that'll be cool to put up. So anyway, we started out then in 88, and then, we got a good local following. I'd say by 89, we put out our first demo tape. Yeah. That started to get us a little bit known in the underground. Back then it was all tape trading and, mailing copies to fanzines and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And
just only be on tape.
Yes, it was only on tape. It was only on tape. And so basically it was, we started to get, some press from the fanzines. And then, and we were very good locally at building our mailing list, so we got to the point where we had about 1,000 people on our mailing list locally. Yeah. And that became very, very powerful for us because we would put out a mailer, we were kids. So, I mean, to put out 1,000-person mailer back then was about $250, so, I mean, it cost us money and everything. But what happened was, we started to offset some of those things, some of those costs, because fanzines would say, okay, we would say, hey, we got a big, local metal following and stuff. You want to put some flyers in, and we'd put some flyers in, and they'd send us a couple bucks for postage and stuff. And, and then other local bands that we were friends with would start to, they wanted, to piggyback on our mailer. So they would give us some money and stuff. So I mean, basically we were able to grow the mailer to about 1,000 or 1,200 good local followers. Yeah. And then, that started to get us some bigger local shows. And we started to play with, some other bands like Demolition Hammer. And then we started to get some other shows at like Sundance, which was a bigger venue on Long Island. So we started to get some gigs with like Atheist, Watchtower, Candlemass. Interestingly enough, also, we played the very first show. I'm almost sure it's the first time that Suffocation ever played. They played with us. So we got to see Suffocation's first gig, which was really wild because there was nothing quite like them when, we were friendly with them, and Joey and I were looking at each other. It's like we were listening to Frank. We were like, what the hell is this? There's nothing like this. So, but then we put out the second tape. And what had happened was there was in California, there was a guy named Richard C., which a lot of people knew from back then. He owned a magazine and a record store called Wild Rags. It was Wild Rags Records, right? And I started corresponding with Richard C., and I said, hey, we got like this, between 1,000 and 1,200 person local mailer. And he was like, oh, that's great. I he was very big on mailing lists and stuff. So he was like, I want that mailing list. So we traded mailing lists. He gave me his fanzine mailing list, and we gave him our local following mailing list. And once we got a hold of that mailing list, basically, I was like, all right, well, what do we do with this now? We got, it's like 1,200 magazines from around the world, right? He said, okay, this is what you do. Send a regular letter to everybody on that list and say, hey, look, if you want a copy of our demo, we will send it to you as long as you guys review it. We'll send you a free copy of the demo and that kind of thing. And again, back then, this is 1991, so it's still all tape trading. There's no internet, that kind of thing. So I said, okay. So we did that. He actually said we were the only band that ever listened to what he said. So we did that. We got about 300 responses back that wanted it. So I sent out about 250, 300 tapes. Yeah. And all of a sudden, boom, we were charting on Metal Force's demo charts, and we were getting picked up by some of the bigger magazines, and we were on the radio, metal radio all over Europe and stuff. So it started to become kind of, we started in the underground scene. We got, kind of big. Yeah. But we were always, back then, the main thing that mattered, the main thing was trying to get signed, trying to get a record deal. Yeah. And, we shopped it and we shopped it and we shopped it, and it never really happened for us. I think what was happening really, I think we were a little bit ahead of our time. Yeah. But we were also we came in just a little bit too late. You know what I'm saying? Like if we hit our stride at the same time, let's say, bands like Overkill were hitting their stride 3 years, 4 years earlier, but we couldn't, obviously. I was 17. I was the oldest member. John Modell was 14 years old when he started with us. So, but what happened was we didn't really quite hit the timing right, and I think the scene started to switch to extreme death metal. Yeah. You had bands like Suffocation and Pyrexia coming out of Long Island, and then you had the big movement from Tampa, with like the Malevolent Creation and that kind of stuff, and then at the same time on the larger scale, grunge took over. Seattle grunge took over. Yeah. So you had one extreme of extreme death metal, and the other polar opposite was Seattle grunge, and thrash just got kind of wiped out, and we were very kind of technical, progressive thrash, and we were kind of different, and the market just got killed for it, You give me just 1 sec.
Between all the seeds, between the technical thrash metal and grunge and the hair metal scene, which went big in MTV, so.
Yeah, but I mean, the grunge and the death metal thing sort of squeezed us and what we were doing kind of out, So we never got picked up. Yeah. And but we always seemed to maintain sort of a cultish kind of status, I guess. And then basically, we kind of felt like it was Joey and I just sort of felt like it was an unfinished part of our lives. And then one day I read this review. From a guy over in Germany, a guy named Roman. He had a website called Forgotten Steel, and it was this fantastic review of our second demo tape, and it kind of lit a spark for Joey and I to start this up again. That was basically how that started. Yeah, we kind of had this underground cultish following that seems to have followed us and become much bigger now that the internet has given us the ability to do that.
Yeah, now it's easier to keep the contact to all the people.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So, and what have you done in the time between 1981 and the EP you released in 2008? So the band didn't exist at the time, or?
Oh, between 91 with our second demo and 2008, we kept going till about I think it was around 94 when we broke up. So we finished off in '94. We recorded. We wrote probably about another, I'd say between 6 and 8 songs after the second demo, and those never got recorded properly. There are some like basement tapes of those recordings and some things like that. Around '92, our drummer left. He quit. He moved to Atlanta, so that left us with a hole. Trying to find a new drummer. Yeah. We wound up finding this phenomenal drummer, a guy named Elliot Hoffman, who plays for the band Car Bomb. If you ever heard of the math metal band Car Bomb,
no.
No, okay. They're very, like the polyrhythmic math metal kind of Meshuggah style kind of stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
So him and the bass player actually both of Maelstrom went on and formed that band. Excuse me. Yeah, so I mean, we played with Elliot for about 2 years, but it was he started to really drive the music in sort of a different direction, and it was losing its flair of what Maelstrom was. Things were becoming much more polyrhythmic. Things were becoming less melody-driven and more awkward time signature change and that kind of thing. It was almost getting to the point where I was having difficulty writing, vocally writing to the songs and stuff. Okay. So we all kind of realized that eventually that it just wasn't working out for what Maelstrom was. It was just changing. And Joey and John wanted to change along with this new idea that Elliot was doing. So we parted. They asked me to step away, and that was fine for me at the time because it wasn't anything that we used to be anymore anyway. So they were very good. They decided to completely change the name. They got a new singer. Basically, and then that was the end of Maelstrom, basically. Okay. And they went on to become a band called Spooge, which was a lot like Mr. Bungle. Frank Zappa, Mr. Bungle kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Very, very excellent musicians, but very comical, jokey kind of stuff. So, that was basically what happened with Maelstrom. And then I guess around 2005, Joey and I stayed friends. We've been very, very, very close friends, since we first met. And so, I used to go and support their new band, and it was a very good relationship with everybody. But then around Spooge broke up, and then around 2005, Joey and I were just kind of talking, and we had read this review, and we both said, this is something that we never quite did the way we wanted. Yeah. The vision that we had for Maelstrom never really got realized the way that we wanted it. And so we found another drummer and put it back together, basically. But it was just Joey, myself, and another drummer. That was basically how it went. And
but in between that time, have you been part of another band, or did you?
Nope.
No music at all.
Not me. No, not me. I did a few auditions here and there. I tried out for a couple of Slayer tribute bands, which was something I was always interested in doing. That really didn't work out. I tried out for Eddie Campbell's project. That didn't really work out. But no, the only band I've ever really actually been a part of is Maelstrom.
Yeah, cool. So, and after all that, you released this EP in 2008, but then it took another 12 years to bring this record on the street. Yeah, that's a long time.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
So, what happened?
What happened? Yeah. Okay. In 2006, 2005, Joey and I decided to start again.
Yeah.
we met with a guy named Daniel Clefman, who Joey knew, and he was the guy to do the drums. Okay.
Yeah.
We started to retool and rewrite the material with, between Joey and I, and Dan putting his input in drum wise. We began the process of getting our chops back up and, getting all of this kind of reworked and figuring out what was going to go where and how the songs were going to work structurally and practicing, basically. And getting Dan up to speed with the material, because it was all brand new to him. So on 2006, we felt we were ready to record. We went down to Tampa, Florida, to record with a guy named Greg Marchek, who had done our second demo tape. And we really wanted to record with Greg because it was, first off, it was nostalgic kind of thing. It was bringing us back to who we had recorded with back then. And also because it was, we loved the way that Greg recorded drums. He was a master at capturing natural drum sound. So Greg was known around for bands like Nocturnus. He recorded and produced Nocturnus' stuff. He recorded. He was also the touring engineer for Trans-Siberian Orchestra. So he was really great recording engineer. And like I said, especially drum-wise, I just absolutely loved his drum sounds. So we went down, we recorded the drums in about 3 or 4 days. Dan did an amazing job. Greg tracked it all. It was fantastic. We said, okay, while we were down there, Joe got accepted to medical school. All right. He got a call while we were in the recording sessions that he was getting accepted into medical school. But it was out of the country. So when you get that kind of call, you have to go. You don't get another opportunity, so you have to go. So basically, he had about 3 weeks to pack up his life and leave, and we had just recorded. So we had to shelve the drum record. We finished the drum recording, we tracked it all, got it all done, and then we had to shelve it, basically. While he went down to school, and then we tried to record again when he came back, like here and there when he came back. But his first recording really was just not where it needed to be. It was very different than what we wanted. And he realized that eventually. And, his head was just his head was in school at the time. Yeah. So we had to scrap that. And then, And then when he was back for a chunk of time, he was going to be back for, let's say, 3 months, right? We were going to go and record back down in Tampa again with Greg. And so we called up to book that session, and Greg died. So it's really bizarre.
Typical.
So, well, I hope not too typical. You hope that the guy dies all the time. So that put us in a situation where now we had to find another recording situation. All right. We found Voodoo Studios over in Freeport, Long Island, and we decided, you know what, there's no way that we're going to be able to do the whole album. So let's take 3 songs and do an EP and test the waters and see what people think about, Maelstrom again. Okay, so we picked what we thought were kind of the 3 songs that were most popular back when we were playing in the 80s and 90s. So we picked the Arise, Predestined, and Fuel Crusade. We said, okay, this will be the EP. Joey started to record the stuff. He recorded his sessions. We got, it's a very, very long, convoluted story, but eventually we got the recording the way that we wanted it, and then I started my vocals and stuff, and but my vocals were still very much like how they were back when I was doing the second demo and stuff like that. There was still a lot of grit, a lot of, I was always a very, I don't know if you know the vocalist Martin Walkier from the band Sabat, and then Skyclad. He went on to do Spot and Skyclad.
Okay.
He was always a very big influence for me, and I was very much like him.
Yeah.
Very kind of choppy staccato kind of vocals with a lot of bite. So that was a lot of who I was and how I was. But there were a couple passages that I did where I really just sang. and Joey really loved those. So we kind of said, okay, you know what? When we go into do this stuff for the album, let's explore that kind of thing. So basically, 2008 came out. The EP was ready to go. We launched the EP. It went over very well. It was really, it really went over well. But then we still had 7 more tracks to finalize. So in Maelstrom time, 7 tracks can take like 9 years. So it just look, at that point I had my one son. I had a second child on the way. My wife was pregnant with Michael. Joey's wife just started to get pregnant. Just things happened. As time went on, eventually I lost my house in Sandy. The storm.
Yeah. Sandy, the storm. Yeah.
Yeah, the hurricane.
Yeah.
One of us would lose a job, the other one would, just life just got in the way. And then eventually we finished the recording, and about 4 years we finished the recording, and we were ready to put it out, and then again, we didn't have the ability financially to put it out the way we wanted to. We wanted to have the right PR people. We wanted to have the right radio people. And all of that stuff costs money. We didn't want to just release it and that was it. We wanted it promoted, because let's put it this way, if we didn't do it the right way, you and I wouldn't be talking right now.
Yeah.
So we wanted to have people behind it, a team behind it that we could say, okay, look, here's the record. You guys do what you do because we don't have the contacts you have. So that was basically, and it got shelved again. Nevertheless, basically it got shelved till 2020. And then when this pandemic started, I turned to Joey and I said, look, I don't think there's ever going to be a time in the history of the planet where it's going to be an advantage to not have to tour.
Yeah.
Because we're not really a touring band. We don't really care about that. We're both going to be 50 in a year and a half or whatever, and we're not even a full band. You know what I mean? Like, it's just Joey and I. We have this album now. We have this album, and it's been sitting, and it was just like, you know what? We have a captive audience that a lot of people are hoping. They're very bored. A lot of people around the world are bored.
Yeah.
They might want something new, and basically, I don't think there's ever going to be a time in our lives where it's an advantage to not have to tour, because what was happening is a lot of albums were getting shelved and pushed back because the tours are not going. So like Lamb of God's album got delayed by like 3 months because, so it was actually an advantage to put it out now. So we decided, you know what? Yeah, that's probably the case. And we went with it. And so that's what happened.
That's right.
So yeah, it's 12 years later, but here it is.
That's it. But it went very, very well, and it doesn't sound like songs are more than 30 years old. So you're still technical, maybe right before most bands compose their music. There happens so much in the songs. So when I heard it, my first comparison, had to be a band like Howling Sycamore. Do you know them?
No.
Howling Sycamore?
No, I'm going to have to look them up, though. What's the name of it?
Howling Sycamore.
Oh, Howling. Okay, yeah. I have Howling. How do you spell Sycamore?
Sycamore. So you mentioned Watchtower before.
Yeah.
The singer of Howling Sycamore is Jason McMaster.
Okay. Yeah.
Watchtower. So very technical, very hard to catch by first.
I noticed that there's a tree on the cover, right? Is there a tree on that cover?
Oh, lightning.
No, it's tree. But it's hitting a tree, right?
No, it's more like a building.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if you're saying sycamore, like the tree.
Ah, yeah, okay. No, it's sycamore.
Sycamore, okay. Whatever. Jason McMaster is the vocalist?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a very technical band, so very hard to get by first listen. So when I had the choice or the chance to hear the Sycamore, the Maelstrom album at first, so it didn't get me. So I had to take a second and a third listen. So and then I started to recognize, oh, yeah, that's a cool guitar here and a cool move here and all these things that happened on the record that gets me by the more I listen to it, the better it gets.
That's great to hear. Thank you. Thank you for listening at least the second time. There's a lot of people who, if they don't like something right away, that's it. And I'm at fault of that sometimes myself. You know, it happens. So thank you so much.
Yeah, that's what I always do when I had a chance to write a review for a band. So I never listened to it once and put it away. I always listen to it a couple of times. Cool. On the headphones, in the car, at work, so on in different situations, and to give the music a chance.
Yep. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. So, what more to ask for?
I absolutely love the collection of discs that I'm staring at here. That really is like the collection of stuff that just got me into right there. It's so great.
The main records always looks good, so it's good to build front with it.
Absolutely.
Are you still a record collector, or do you still right now listen music like the younger kids on Spotify and?
Lately I've been listening to stuff on Apple Music, just because it's very convenient. I've been kind of clearing out my parents' house, so I found my old record collection. So I'm going to be digging up stuff, but I don't really buy albums anymore. I do miss it, but it's just I don't have this. I don't really, we don't really have a space for it and that kind of thing. Maybe someday I'll buy a few here or there, but I don't know if I'm going to become like a true collector. Yeah. But I appreciate the true collectors, and I think that it's a beautiful thing. I mean, I would love to see this Maelstrom album on vinyl. I would absolutely love to, but I was just looking into vinyl production, and we would have to do a double because the amount of time.
7 minutes of music, man.
Yeah. The amount of time that would be on each side is too much for a vinyl. So we would have to do a double, and it's a lot of money to make that stuff.
Yeah, I know. So as you
I really want to see this. I really want to see this artwork big.
It has to be. It's a perfect artwork for a vinyl. Yeah. Maybe in different colors.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
It's like I said, it would have to be a double, and it's a lot of money to do that right now. So but hopefully in time. Hopefully.
Yeah, you have to find a record company. That's maybe the first or the next step. Yeah. So maybe here in Germany are a few good companies that maybe can make it possible. So
that would be phenomenal. Maybe we can have another conversation after this interview about that.
Have you ever heard about a record company called Underground Power Records?
No.
The German record company who did the Siren comeback album. Siren? The band from Tampa Bay? Yeah. They did a comeback album here in April.
Okay.
Yeah. Underground Power Records released it on vinyl, and Gom Records and Battle Cry Records did the CD. So
awesome. That's great.
Here in Europe are a lot of collectors who are waiting for releases on vinyl or CD.
Yes, I know. I mean, the European market is just filled with just wonderful collectors who just absolutely love this stuff, and a lot of that and that's a lot of the really the rabid kind of fan base that we really want and love, because they just and and we make nice artwork, so it's the kind of thing that they really want, I think. It's just a matter of being able to produce it. It doesn't cost. It costs a fair amount of money to get it out there. Also, just right now, if we produce that kind of thing in the United States, then we have to ship it to Europe, and shipping is crazy right now. It's insane. So looking for somebody to produce and distribute in Europe is definitely something we need to pursue. Absolutely. Michael, do you have any other questions regarding the album itself, or anything that you've heard that you wanna get more elaborate on, or anything like that?
Yeah, I have to take a look at my notice. You told a lot of my questions you have answered with my first question on the start. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Development of Maelstrom, your friendship with Joey for all the years.
Yeah.
Just you had been all friends for all the time.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. And maybe I have to ask you about your musical influences from the start. Yeah, you mentioned you started with Kiss and
Kiss. Kiss was a childhood thing. I love the fact that they are just the Kiss are just performers. They're entertainers. I consider them incredible entertainers, and they're also really, really smart marketers.
Yeah.
There's still nobody who produces more kinds of things, everything from bed tents to pinball machines to everything. They're just first class marketers. They really know how to brand themselves in the best way.
Without Kiss, the music scene would not have been the same like it is. Yeah,
absolutely. So music marketing wouldn't exist. Now, I think a great middle ground between amazing musicians and very good marketers and great artwork and that kind of thing is Iron Maiden. They're I think my biggest influences are Bruce Dickinson from Iron Maiden.
Yeah, as a singer,
but also Iron Maiden in general. Not just Bruce Dickinson as a vocalist, but also Iron Maiden as a brand, as people who really care about their artwork, who care about quality of music, quality of artwork, quality of packaging, that kind of thing. So I love Iron Maiden for that. They were also, like I said, they were the first band for metal that I got into. Power Slave was my first real metal album.
Yeah.
John on the more rock and roll side, John Wetton from King Crimson and Asia and stuff. I love his voice. I very much love his voice. Like I said, Bruce Dickinson, vocally, but also theatrically. Bruce Dickinson is a very theatrical singer, and I love his performance. I love his theatrics on stage. I love his theatrics in vocal sound. On swinging to the heavier side, Martin Walkier from Sabbat and eventually Skyclad is a vocal influence and also even more so a lyrical influence. He is probably hands down the best lyric writer that's ever existed. If you haven't really read into Martin's lyrics, I would strongly suggest you look at his lyrics. A lot of people look at bands like Tool as great lyricists and stuff. I'm telling you, nobody can touch Martin Walkier. There is no person that has a more creative, more astute ability to manipulate the language than that man. His ability to turn a pun, his ability to twist words and get them to work in homonym and just is incredible what he does with a pen. Millie from Creator, big influence on the heavy thrash side, and then on the death metal side, Johan Haig from Amon Amarth.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Those are definitely my influences, going from clean classic rock to heavy death metal. Those would be my influences.
Yeah. Is there a concept behind the story of God and man?
Oh yeah, huge concept. Absolutely. Yeah.
So,
If you take a look at the digital package, which will eventually be a hard copy package, but if you take a look at the digital package, there's a subtitle to the album, and it's called An Allegory in an Abandoned Art. An Allegory in an Abandoned Art. Okay? The allegorical aspect of it is the story itself. Okay? The concept is basically the difference between rules-based dogmatic religion, okay, and its power and ability to manipulate mankind, okay, and the innate and internal sense of spirit and the internal God that's within each of us, okay, and the conflict between those two aspects, okay? And to me, the resolve is the realization for the characters to realize that outside influence of God, okay, of good and evil from an outside perspective is not as powerful as it is from an internal perspective, okay, and that it can be, and that you don't need outside dogmatic religion or rules to have your own sense of spirituality. Yeah. And that each of us is in and of ourselves a small part of a greater God, that we're all part, and then from a metaphysical sense, I very much believe that God, that there's a part of God in each of us, and that eventually we'll coalesce back into this entity, let's say, that is ultimately God. All right, that God is not necessarily always and only outside, but is also inside.
Inside,
okay?
Okay.
So that's the allegory of the story.
Yeah.
The abandoned art of the story actually has to do with the abandoned art is the album itself, is the fact that we wrote an album, which I think is an abandoned art at this point. I think a lot of people write singles or a couple of tracks, or they'll take, they wrote, say, 18 tracks, and they'll say, okay, well, these are the best 11, let's put them on an album, and that's it. Yeah. That's not the way we write. Yeah. Every song is very, very specific. They're all written lyrically. They're all written musically. The artwork is done specifically, all for a reason, and they all have a very specific order in mind. Yeah. Okay, I'll give you a quick little. You know what an Easter egg is in the United? We call it an Easter egg in the United States. Yeah. Like little, a little surprise. Yeah. Okay, I'll give you a little quick Easter egg in that album. Okay. Do you happen to have a copy of the songs with you?
I have it on my smartphone.
Okay. Could you take a quick look at it?
Yeah.
Does it have the times of the songs?
Yes.
Okay. Well, you see the first track is Arise, right?
Yeah.
Okay. What's the time on that?
Wait. It's 6 minutes 18.
Right. Okay. What is the ratio on that? I'm going to make you do a little math now.
The ratio? What is it?
Ratio? 6 to 18 is a...
Yeah.
It's a 1 to 3 ratio, right?
Yeah.
1 to 3.
Yeah,
right?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, now look at Lament of the Fallen, which would be... which would close out part 1, okay?
Yeah.
There's a 3-part act, 3-act play, essentially, okay? What's the time on Lament of the Fallen?
Yeah, it's the same, 6:18.
6:18, right. Yeah. So Act 1 opens at 6:18 on a 3-to-1 ratio. Act 1 closes at 6:18 on a 3-to-1 ratio.
Okay.
Now look at Sunrise.
12:36.
Which is the sum of Arise and Lament of the Fallen.
Yeah. Okay.
Also at a 3-to-1 ratio.
Yeah.
Also the sum of those two songs in time.
Okay.
What that is architecturally building balance in sound.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's very, very balanced to that. Okay. And it's very purposeful. Okay. Your inner balance, your spirit inside will feel that. You might not notice it. You might not know it. You might not realize it unless I'm telling you that. Yeah. But that's very purposeful.
Of course. Yeah, but it's very interesting. Yeah, of course. I think I would never have realized it.
Right,
so
but when you listen to that album...
the tracks have the same length, of course, but I haven't recognized that the last track is the sum of both of the tracks.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And when you listen to that album, okay, you're going to feel a certain level of balance, okay, because of that. All right. I'll get you'd like the track 13 Within a Circle, right? I think you like that track, right? Okay. You notice that track ends before it resolves, right? It stops short. Almost sounds like a mistake.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
very
purposeful. A good input. So that's a good question. Though I recognize it. I think I thought it is a mistake on my download. No, it isn't.
No, it is not.
Okay.
It is not. It is done purposefully to not resolve, to make you uncomfortable.
Okay. That's cool. Yeah, good information.
Okay? Because what's happening in that song, okay, is a very, very evil thing. All right?
Yeah.
It's a very bad thing. They're going to sacrifice a child in that song, okay?
Okay.
But they don't actually get to do it. They don't finish it, okay?
Yeah.
So what happens is the child itself basically erupts into light, okay, and it blinds them, okay. Which if you read the lyrics in Thief of Light, it explains what's happened, okay. But what happens? But basically at the very end of 13 Within a Circle, where they're about to commit this sacrifice, okay, they don't get to finish it. All right, and that's why we clip the song just half a millisecond shy of resolving the note. Mm-hmm. Musically, the note doesn't resolve, so it gives you a lot of tension, a lot of tension, and it seems almost like a mistake. Yeah, and then Thief of Light starts with a lot of tension. It almost sounds like, if you listen to it, it almost sounds like somebody's tripping or falling or stumbling. And that's the point of that song. There's a lot of little things that are done in this album that are done very purposefully. I will say this though, that cutting that track short is, although it's our idea obviously for that track, and it's a perfect place to do it. We got that idea from an old Overkill album.
Yeah. What?
The album Years of Decay.
Yeah, I have all of them. So.
Okay, if you you listen to Years of Decay, all right, which is my favorite Overkill album. All right, the last song is called The End or End. Yeah. Evil Never Dies. Yeah. All right, listen to Evil Never Dies.
Okay.
Bring it right to the end, and you'll hear it clip. That's not a mistake. They cut the song short.
Okay, I think I haven't heard it about 20 years. Yeah.
And that's where we got that idea from.
Yeah,
that album is just chock full of amazing ideas. Ideas. There's a couple of things that we stole from that album.
Okay.
Yep.
I have seen Overkill last year. Yeah, in
fantastic. Awesome. I saw them. They're
still
great.
Fantastic live band.
Yep.
Yeah. Still.
Love them.
Yeah.
I saw them with Creator about 4 or 5 years ago. What a great show. Yeah. 2 incredible bands that are still kicking ass ever since.
I've never seen Creator live. It's a German band, but I have never
seen Creator live. No.
Yeah.
I actually, one of my favorite shows of all time, because I've always loved the European metal, especially Destruction and Creator, two of my favorite bands. I got to see them at L'Amour's together. Amazing show.
Yeah.
So good.
So I had always looked more for the American bands.
Okay. You know, it happens.
Yeah.
But I always think that that's one thing that made Maelstrom very different than a New York thrash band. You know, we could have been like Overkill or Anthrax or, you know, like any of the New York thrash bands kind of thing, you know, Carnivore or you know, mixing hardcore with metal.
Yeah.
But we always had a very European influence.
Yeah.
Our influences were mostly European. And on Joey's end, his influences were very much, you know, the neoclassical players, you know, like the Yngwie and Jason Becker.
Absolutely. Yeah. You hear it on the album. Very much neoclassic guitar leads. Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
Was my first, what gets me on my mind. Yeah. Yngwie Malmsteen.
Yep.
Yeah. Of course.
So, you know, Jason Becker, Tony McAlpine, all of those guys, the Cacophony teams, you know, all those guys, you know, absolutely.